Hi guys, it's Kirby. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are revisiting a series that I only filmed 2 videos for in the past, and it's called Libby Listens, I believe. And it's basically what I've been listening to on the Libby app, which is a library app, and just recommendations and the books that I have been borrowing from the library via Libby. I listen to a lot of audiobooks because it's easy to have on my headphones while I'm doing all of my mom tasks and all of my life tasks that I have to do, or to listen into the car. There was a huge span of time, years, where I wasn't listening to a whole bunch of audiobooks, and the series on my channel kind of dwindled because the stereo in my car broke, and it was gonna be like $500 to fix, and like I don't have an extra $500 just to replace the whole like audio stereo system in my car, so I kind of just dwindled because I don't always love the audio that comes from my phone. It's not like top tier, and I'm obviously not gonna wear headphones while I'm driving. So anyways, I've gotten back into my audiobook routine, so I just thought that we would do a Libby Listens, as well as support your libraries. They need us. Libraries are amazing. It's punk as hell to be pro-library, so be pro-library. Go support your libraries. They offer so many services. You can find so many books on Libby. There's tons of other library audio book, e-book apps that you can use. But yeah, they offer all of those things for us, so why not take advantage? I've already done my base except for my concealer because we're doing eyeshadow, so I figured if there was any fallout. But I've already done like a quick base. The eyeshadow palette that I'm going to be using today, as I talk about my audiobook experience lately, is from Alamar Cosmetics. It is the Destino palette. I got this a long time ago, I believe, in a BoxyCharm, and I just love the color story. I used this a minute ago on my channel during April dupes, and I thought somebody had mentioned, one person, not like people, one person mentioned that they liked that eye look to recreate it, so that's just what we're going to do today, is use this palette to recreate the eye look. I don't think I'm necessarily going to shout out the eyeshadows that I'm using to do the eye look, but I might put like a picture of the palette on like a corner while I'm talking and just like mark out the eyeshadows that I'm using at the moment. I think that would be better so I don't like lose my train of thought while I'm talking. But first we're gonna prep the eyes with a little bit of concealer. You use eyeshadow primer, you use concealer, you use whatever you feel led to use. I feel led to use concealer. It's never let me down. I know many makeup artists would disagree, and you know what? That's okay. Okay, the first book that I'm going to talk about is me and some of my friends from high school. We actually get together and have a little like book club, book discussion, and what I like about that is we don't actually read the same book, but this we do recommend, like, hey, this is what I'm gonna be reading if anybody wants to read it with me, but we don't read the same book because then we can all talk about a different book, and like it builds your interest in like your to be read list. But this particular time, it was like one of our first times as we were like starting this. My one friend was like, hey, I'm reading The Witch of Portobello. If anybody needs a recommendation, you can read it with me. And this is the thing with me. I probably should start reading synopsises about books before I read them, so I have a better idea of what the book is about going into it, and or like just a vague brief outline, almost like Cliff Notes. I didn't know what this book was about. She didn't know, I mean, I don't think she knew what this book was about, and that's okay. But I started reading it and I got real confused real quick because obviously I'm like, okay, it's about the Witch of Portobello, but it's not written, it's written from like a first person's point of view because they're like interviewing people about this woman, and she, I guess, is like considered the Witch of Portobello, but I think it's more like how her spirit interacts with like her community and like her background and things like that. All to say, I was very, very confused by it. I understand why my friend, she connected with it very much. However, I did not connect with it, and that's okay. Would it be on my, would it be the first book that I'd recommend to people? No, but also I very much knew going into that reading of The Witch of Portobello, or rather the listening of The Witch of Portobello, that it was not going to be like a my kind of book. I like lighthearted fiction, romance, you know, quirky, fun, sci-fi. I like celebrity memoirs, biographies, autobiographies. This, whereas it was fiction, it was not like a lighthearted fiction. It was very like introspective, which is not a problem, but it wasn't a capturing book for me. Again, totally understand why my friend liked it and why people would like it. I think it was just the writing style of it. I couldn't keep up because it was like you were in the past, then you were in the present. This person was talking, that person was talking, and I just had a very difficult time understanding the book. And that was, again, probably more of a Kirby fault than anything of, hey, you probably should have looked a little bit more into this book, knowing that it was very, like, introspective, to understand what was actually happening with it. But that's okay. I think what's great about that is not only does that challenge you, but it also gave me a better perspective on like what my friend likes to read, where she's at in life. You know, again, I totally understood why she felt connected to it. I just in no way felt connected to it. And that's okay. That's okay. The next book that I read was Britney Spears' memoir, The Woman in Me. It was a 6-hour listen. Oh my goodness, you guys. I love celebrity memoirs. I do. So this book was read by Michelle Williams, and I do feel kind of devastated because I wish she would have read it herself. I understand possibly for like trauma reasons why Britney Spears herself wouldn't necessarily want to read this book, but I love when like celebrity memoirs or just memoirs in general are read by the author or read by the person that like they're about. I mean, if they're still living, obviously. So I was a little disappointed that she didn't read it herself, but I do think that Michelle Williams did a very good job of trying to kind of like portray Britney Spears' voice, not like copy her, but like portray Britney Spears' voice in those moments that Britney Spears was writing about. But it's kind of interesting to like have lived through those times. Obviously I was a child, so like I didn't know exactly what was and wasn't happening. But like to live through the times of seeing all of the news about what was happening, and then now to get like her perspective. There were very, very sad moments in this book, and it's also like the treatment of women in Hollywood and just in the limelight, and the treatment of men is like so stark. And again, whether you believe her side or not her side, I think it's beneficial obviously to always get like both sides of the story. I have no stake in her life or her story or anything like that, but it is just so interesting to again see how like the media portrayed everything, and like you live through that time and like you see her performing and things like that, and now to like kind of hear from her perspective the back end of like what was happening, and to just like mesh those two in your mind to kind of like fully form your opinion. Very, very interesting. It is still again a very good listen and or read if you're into like celebrity memoirs, because again, just like very, very sad things happened in her life. And again, I don't want to like give anything away in case you also want to listen, but just like so many like sad things that, again, hindsight is 2020, and or the outside perspective is so easy and clear to see what was happening. But obviously, like, if you are in it, like she was, you might not have been able to see what was happening or even be able to like understand how to get yourself out of it, which is like a lot of what that book is like hindsight's 2020. Obviously a whole bunch of outsiders looking in, you like, they can see the problems, but whenever I was living in it, I knew some of the problems, but I didn't know all of the problems or even how to fix those problems. And, you know, blackmail and money and all of those other things were being involved, and it's just like, again, just like sad. But it's nice that like she comes out on the other side. So, well, kind of. And by that I mean she's still alive, which the story is crazy. So anyways, moving on to the next book. It is The Crime Brulee Bake Off by Rebecca Connolly. You guys, if you are a fan of Bake Off, like with Paul Hollywood, Prue Leith, you know, Bake Off. Like, we all know what Bake Off is. You will love this book. It's like The Crime Brulee. It is part murder mystery, part Bake Off, part romance. It is the cheesiest book in the whole entire world, and I can only describe it as like light-hearted murder mystery, which is like crazy to say because obviously there's death and murder in the book, but not like gruesome. And it all like centers around the baking show that they are filming that is seemingly like going under because of their ratings and all this other stuff. And then the estate's host falls in love with one of the contestants, and it's like a whole thing. And it is, again, lighthearted fun. I listened to it. It was a 9-hour listen, and it was, again, it was just cute and fun and silly. And again, I even hate to say that because it's a murder mystery book, but if you like Bake Off, you will like The Crime Brulee Bake Off by Rebecca Connolly. I don't want to say anything because if you do end up reading it, I don't want to spoil anything because it's almost like everything is so, it's just so easy to like see what's coming before you even know what's happening. So yeah, but I highly recommend it. It is not intense. There is not like any bad things. I mean, obviously murder happens, but like there are no like jump scares, you know, like you're not gonna be like caught off guard about what's happening. It very much is a, you know what's happening before it's happening type of book. But yeah, The Crime Brulee Bake Off. That is an amazing book, I will say. It is so funny and exactly what you think it's going to be. The next book that I read was Conceal Don't Feel by Jen Kalanita. This is kind of like a knockoff, or not a knockoff, but another book by the Liz Broswell series, and it is like youth fiction, although some of the themes in there are kind of heavy, so mature youth, but it is still written in a way that like young readers will appreciate it. But the Conceal Don't Feel is what if Anna and Elsa never knew each other as the future queen of Arendelle, and it basically takes these Disney stories and reworks them, so it's kind of like more of a what if book. Like, what if the details aren't actually the details we think they are? So in this one, what if Anna was given up for adoption to a family friend of the king and queen because Anna and Elsa needed to be separated, and it pretty much tells the story through the lens of Elsa being an only child at first and their struggle to like find each other. Again, it is not like for mature readers. It is not like an adult fiction book. It is very much a youth book, but the whole reason why I was listening to it was because I wanted to see if this series was like appropriate for my daughter who is 8. And this particular book, The Conceal Don't Feel, which is 7 in the series, was appropriate for her. However, there are other books in this series that have kind of heavier themes, and the way they're written is a little bit heavier, that aren't necessarily great for her. Like there's the Rapunzel one, which very much is like, the theme is what if Rapunzel's hair killed people instead of revived people, and we didn't really realize that going into it, so we were like, oh, well, we'll listen to the Rapunzel one next, and no, we shouldn't have, because that one is a lot darker than this one. And the whole reason we even found this series was because they made 2 of the books into graphic novels that my daughter found and really enjoyed. The Ariel one, which is A Part of Your World, which is basically what if Ariel didn't succeed, like what if Ursula kept her voice, what if Ariel was still mute. And then the other one is On Till Dawn, which is what if Wendy went to Neverland with Hook instead of Pan, or Pan's shadow. And those 2 were really cute too, and they were appropriate. So we kind of assumed that like the whole series was. And it's not that they're inappropriate, it's just that the way some of them are written and some of the themes of them, they're a little bit darker than others. So just be aware of that as a parent, that like if your child doesn't handle heavier themes well, or like maybe isn't ready for that in like independent reading, this series, all the books might not be great, but there are really good ones that are out there. Or just wait for the graphic novels, because Emberly, my daughter, loves a graphic novel. Along the same Disney lines, I started listening to and reading the Serena Valentino series about the villains, which this is, again, YA fiction, not like youth, not like children's fiction, but more like young teen fiction, young adult, if you will. They are riveting only because it kind of changes your perspective on the villains. The first 3 books center around the evil queen, Ursula, and the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. Then there is Maleficent. Then the Odd Sisters, which are like new characters in the series that kind of play a part in all the books. Then there is Mother Gothel, then Lady Tremaine, Cruella de Vil, Hook, and I'm currently reading Hades because they don't have an audiobook for that one yet. And I will say I enjoyed the whole series up until Cruella de Vil's book, which is 7th in the series, because books 1 through 6, they very much kept the same sort of banter cadence is the word I'm looking for. They very much kept the same cadence, where their stories all connected, and it was really easy to kind of like connect all of the characters together and how their stories connected and all this other stuff. But then when you got to Cruella de Vil's book, which is book 7 in the series, so you are already used to a very certain way of how the stories are being told, how they're expressed, how they're written. Cruella de Vil's book is written in the first person. So Cruella de Vil is the one who's talking about her own story. And it doesn't happen in the magical fantasy fairy tale land. It happens in like our world, like the real world in London, England, London. So So that was difficult to understand how they like, why she changed all of the sudden from like the third person to first person, and it was just a little confusing, and it does kind of get explained a little bit more in Captain Hook and Lady Tremane's book, because those also happen in London, and it's essentially, without giving too much away, the Odd Sisters wanting to basically instill their power across realms. Like, they're kind of tired and fed up of dealing with this realm that they're in. And so they then were able to kind of like cross realms into London and continue the stories there. And they are still all linked up, but it was just very confusing to see that at first when you were listening to it. Still very well written, but I kind of was like, meh, you lost me a little bit. And then they kind of make the excuse in Hook's book, which is, Hook is number 9 in the series, that for witches in particular, and powerful witches, time runs all at the same time. So there is no like chronological order to what is happening, because Cruella's book is 7, Lady Tremane's book is 8, and Hook's book is 9. However, Hook's story happens before Cruella and Lady Tremane's book. And Lady Tremane's book or story either runs the same or concurrently with Cruella's story, which again is very confusing, because as a human, not as a mythical creature, time only runs in chronological order for us, or for me at least. And so it was a little hard to kind of like deal with that or figure that out at first, because the first 6 books in the series all kind of run in like a chronological order, or maybe they don't, but that's how I had kind of perceived it. So anyways, that's that. And now I'm reading Hades, which is Fire and Fate. There is no audiobook, but I'm reading it. And what kind of helps is that like I already have the voice of Hades from the movie in my head. So it does help me to kind of figure out the different characters and things like that. I would recommend the Serena Valentino villains books, because outside of me not liking that they change 6, 7 books in, it does give you a different perspective on the villains themselves, like their origin stories, because most of the villains have actually started off good and then they became villains by the good people, basically not believing them, not trusting them. And so I do think it's interesting, like the perspective of kind of like how the villains became villains, and that they weren't always villains to begin with. Because I think in our minds, you know, when we look at the villains of these stories, is like they're old women, old men, but like how did they start? Were they born evil? Like, were they always villainous? Were they villains as children? And I feel like this is something that Disney explores a lot with like Descendants, Once Upon a Time, the Serena Valentino books, just like, are villains always villains? Are the children of villains villains? So like, I do think that it's an interesting thing, and I do always like to kind of see the different perspectives from like screenwriters and authors, to just kind of be like, oh, what is the tea with that? Alright, as I finish up these eyes, books that I would like to read that are on my like to be read list, and or I did borrow them and then they got turned back, or they got returned before I was able to even crack them open or give them a chance, is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. That was a recommendation from a friend. What's another one? I have Wicked on here, and I did try to read that one, but honestly, I couldn't. It was so boring in the very beginning, and maybe if I just get past like a certain point, it won't be as boring, but like, to like, for the book, I'm not necessarily, I watched the movie, I haven't seen the Broadway show, but the book at first was a little boring. So tell me if you've read Wicked. Does it get better? Does it not get better? Another one that I've read that apparently got returned early, or not read, but borrowed, was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I think that's a romance novel. I don't know. It just looked like it had a fun, a fun cover, and I was like, sure. The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. The Husbands by Holly Garamazio. The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. The Dictionary of Lost Words, Pip Williams. The Midnight Library, Finding Me by Viola Davis. Love to read that. And then The Tattooist of Auschwitz, Heather Morris. Those are all on my like want to read book list, because those are some of the books that my friends have read or have been recommended to me, or they're titles that I have like seen somehow in the like book talk ether, even though I'm not on TikTok. There's another book that isn't available on Libby that I also really want to read. I have a picture of it. Oh, it's along the same lines as the like crime brulee. It is The Fellowship of Bakers and Magic, which to me, if you're going to use The Fellowship of Bakers and Magic, that kind of sounds like Lord of the Rings meets like cookbook, but apparently it's not. Apparently, I forget the description of it. It says best science fiction and fantasy. I forget what it was, how it was described, but it says a cozy fantasy book series. So that is one that is also on my to be read list, but it is not available on Libby, because Libby doesn't have like licensing for everything, or like all publishing houses, because how Libby exists is like the library pays for so many licensings for a book for like so much time, and then that's how we are able to borrow the books, and how like the ebooks are able to be housed, and they have so many copies and this, that, and the other. But yeah. So those are, that is one of the books that I read. And then also in the Serena Valentino book series, I have a screenshot of like all the different books. I'm on Hades. I forgot to cross out Hook. They have a Gaston one, which is Kill the Beast, which doesn't really make sense to me because they already had a Beast book and it says The Beast Within. But as we all know, the Beast wasn't technically the villain. He ended up getting redeemed, but I don't know. So we'll see. I feel like that's kind of like, we'll see how that works. That one also is not available on Libby yet. I don't know if it will be. That's neither here nor there, I assume. But let me finish this eye look, because I was able to finish as I talked about all my books. But as I finish this eye look, which I probably should have put my concealer on before my mascara, at least underneath, do you have any book recommendations or Libby recommendations? Again, I like lighthearted, not so heavy books, even though a lot of my books in my want to be read book list are pretty heavy. I do understand that and acknowledge that. Do you have any like Libby recommendations? I'll take any recommendations. Makeup recommendations, Libby recommendations, hair care recommendations, whatever. Does not bother me. And also, what do we think about this eye look? I really like it because it's like the neutral outside, but it has like that pop of like bluey green on the inside. Alamar Cosmetics has some amazing eyeshadows and products in general. I've always really liked their products. I think the problem is that they're kind of like an online only store. I haven't been able, they used to be in Target, but I haven't seen them in Target for a long time, although I haven't been in Target in a long time. This blush is also very pigmented. Oh my goodness. I don't know if they still have a partnership with Target, and I don't think that they're like an Ulta, but yeah. Alamar Cosmetics. I will link this palette down in the description box below if it still exists, or I will just link to Alamar Cosmetics so you can check out their products, because their eyeshadows are very, very nice. Let me know what you think about this eyeshadow look. Let me know what you think about my Libby Listens recommendations. Hopefully I can keep this series up a little bit now that I'm actually listening to my audiobooks and I've figured out more better times to like read on my e-readers and things like that while I'm sitting in a million parking lots waiting for my daughter to come out of all of her classes and things like that. Let me know down in the comment section your book recommendations, your Libby recommendations, your library recommendations, your makeup recommendations, all the recommendations. Let me know down in the comment section below. I will list all of these things down in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up. As always, please be sure to subscribe and hit the little notification bell. I would hate for you to miss out on any more videos. Thanks so much for watching, guys.